This is Patrick from WSOU 89.5 FM, the loudest rock, and I am joined with Jay Weinberg from Slipknot. How you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And who's the very special guest we also have?
This is Papaya. This is our little girl. My wife's away right now, so I'm on doggy duty right now. So she's joining us for a little bit.
All right, fantastic. So last we spoke, the Chapeltown Rag had just came out. This was last December, and since then you've put out an entire studio album, The End So Far. How does it feel for the entire album to finally be out after all this time?
Feels awesome. We worked hard on it, and with the way everything's gone since the pandemic, everything just takes a lot longer of a time to get done, whether that's, pressing actual records and putting together tours and all that sort of stuff. It all just takes an exorbitant amount of energy and time and planning and stuff. So we've been done with the record for quite a long time now. We've been done with it for like over a year. So it's been done for us for quite a long time. And it's definitely a relief and exciting, to finally get it out there.
Yeah, definitely. And you released Chapeltown Rag while you were on the road, while you were touring, and then you've ended up playing it for your fans. And the singles, Dying Song and Yen, that came out were released while you were on the Knotfest Roadshow. What is it like releasing music on the road and then playing it? It's definitely something you don't see that often.
It's cool. I think any opportunity to get, new music out there, that's what it's all about, right? We're trying to push this thing forward, and I think that's just kind of like it's an interesting time that we find ourselves in, because everything does seem to be so kind of single based, and you can kind of just put out music whenever you want and just kind of, get out there, here's a new song, and play it that night, and that's exciting for us. It's an exciting challenge for us to just find new ways to put in new music out there into the world and into our set list. So yeah, it's an awesome opportunity, and hopefully there's a lot more of that to come.
Yeah, definitely. And this album, when I listen to it, has some elements that are kind of weird and new for Slipknot, but there's also some classic Slipknot heaviness in there. And as someone who joined the band later on, what is it like seeing the recording process in the studio between band members who formed the original Slipknot sound and the whole band, with everyone now making a kind of a newer sounding record for Slipknot?
Well, for me, it's always been kind of just the same. I don't have any experience for being in the studio with the guys before I joined. So really, it's all kind of one thing to me.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, each record that we've made has been different in process. We've made 3 records together now, and each process has been wildly different than the one that preceded it. Which is fine, I think it's good to challenge yourself and push yourself outside of your comfort zone to try to get, different results. Like, we're not trying to make an album like, oh, this has to be better than our last album or whatever. It's just like, we want to try something different, because I think that just pushes you as an artist to do, more things that maybe you weren't able to accomplish before, but now we are. So process wise, it's been different. Like, especially because of the pandemic, we weren't able to be in the same room together for much of the, creation of the album. So that was definitely a creative challenge that we were faced with. But aside from that, the dynamic is largely the same. It definitely, coming up to speed and joining the band while writing the Gray chapter was definitely a way of like, okay, I got to feel out my new bandmates, even though I've known these guys for, well over half my life. That's completely different than trying to work creatively and, something that we're all proud of. Like, we were all friends, but then like having to take that next step into collaborating, where you're trusting each other and what you bring to the table artistically, that's a whole other ball of wax, that I had to learn about. So that was definitely getting up to speed and jumping on a moving freight train. But once you're on that moving freight train, you're on, and everybody's just kind of holding on for dear life. So really that aspect of our process hasn't changed much at all.
Yeah, and just in general, making music as Slipknot has always kind of blown my mind, because, with 9 people making music together, plus a producer making angry and intense, heavy music, I'm curious what else the dynamic is like in the studio. Is it difficult? Is it frustrating? Is it fun? Like what's it like?
So all those things, I think it appeals to, every dynamic of who we are as people. We're 9 very strong personalities in the studio. and all trying to craft something that we're all proud of, because we're all trying to achieve the same goal. We're 9 different people funneling into one song, or, and that becomes a collection of songs that becomes an album. And definitely getting a new voice in there. Like this time around, we worked with Joe Barisi, who's mixed our 2 records prior. But this is our first time being in the studio with him. And so having a new voice in that way, even though, we love working with Greg Fiddleman, who did those 2 records, being in the room with Joe was a different experience. And that was awesome opportunity for us. To kind of have somebody who's new to working intimately with the band, because it's a whole different thing when you're just mixing our songs to then actually like helping craft them and have helping make musical decisions all along the way, because there's so much like once you start to unravel this like tight knit ball of what we are, it just like keeps going and keeps going. It's just like completely overwhelming oftentimes to us. So I can't even imagine what it's like to somebody coming into it for the first time. But yeah, I think, what you hear is that distilled focus of, like you said, there's emotion in it. There's us trying to challenge ourselves, trying to challenge each other. We all want to be the best that we can be. And I think, for ourselves and for each other. So I think, that comes out in a myriad of ways. That comes out in I don't know, it's hard to put a word to it, but like, yeah, there's definitely battles in the studio, but I think it's all constructive, and it's all with the intent that we're trying to make the best song possible. So in that spirit, it's all what what Slipknot needs to be. I think we're dysfunctional all the time, so that just kind of seems to fuel our creativity and what we're able to accomplish in the studio, on stage. It all kind of comes from that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know last time you spoke with us, you talked about the percussion in Slipknot, because you got yourself plus 2 percussionists. But overall, I think Slipknot's a very percussive band in general, whether it's the guitar riffs, the turntables, even Corey's vocals have to be very locked in with the rest of the band. How does this contribute to the recording process of a Slipknot album?
Well, I think, overall, we're wanting to make the strongest impact that we can in the studio and on stage. And, I think that's one of the things that we're proudest the most of, is that, when you listen to one of our records or come to one of our shows, you're going to feel that impact. And so all of that stuff, like you said, is just there to reinforce that kind of mindset, when we're creating something. Like, we are very in tune with the nuanced details of things. It might kind of all sound like crazy chaotic noise to some people, but for us, it is quite controlled, and it is quite deliberate. But that's all all deliberate choices to maximize the impact that we have. So yeah, whether it's the guitar being super overdriven, or the vocals being super gnarly, or the drums being super wild, reinforced by all that percussion. And that's not even to mention what Sid and Craig are bringing to the table. Those are all elements that kind of feed into that impact. So it's kind of unspoken for us, because we know what we're trying to deliver, and that could come in a variety of ways. It doesn't have to be an all-out heavy barn burner of a song for it to have the impact that we want it to have. But as long as it kind of scratches that itch for us, then that's all we need.
Yeah, and you've said the consistency of Slipknot comes from not just running through the motions, doing the same thing every time, but always trying to surprise yourself, improve on the last record, last song, whatever it may be. What about this record do you think was a surprise or stood out for the band when you first heard it?
Well, a song like the song Acidic stands out to me. I'm really proud of that one. I think we all are. It's definitely new sonic territory for us. That bluesy acid rock kind of thing that it has. I'm really happy with the way that song came out, even though it seems maybe to some listeners it might be kind of out of left field, but for us it's like that's totally the direction that we want to go in with a song like that. um and that pops up, that kind of vibe pops up here and there on different albums too. On our last record we had a song called Spiders that was very much kind of an outlier, very non-traditional Slipknot song, but we're able to take it and take its strengths and make it a Slipknot song that we're really proud of. So acidic to me is kind of in that world, you know, it's a new challenge for us. And that's super exciting that we get to, you know, still this many years into Slipknot being around, still push the you know, the extremes of what this band is about into new sonic territories. And you know, I think we kind of have our eye on the ball with that in trying to do all those new things. So capitalizing on an exciting opportunity like that and presenting it in a way that is Slipknot, that's what it's all about. You know, that's what we're trying to do. So that song definitely stands out to me.
Yeah, and talking about specific songs, "Medicine for the Dead" and "Warranty" are two songs that really stood out to me. You know, "Medicine for the Dead" more mid-range tempo, very melodic, and "Warranty" has that kind of classic, you know, self-titled Iowa angry Slipknot sound. What can you tell us about these two songs?
Medicine for the Dead has been a song, that's a song that we've been working on since 2014, you know, since our first tours together. I remember very clearly being on the road on our first tour together, like one of the first shows we had on our first US tour together, where we started bringing like a mobile studio where we have, you know, little recording set up, and I'm often in there, you know, warming up every night and stuff like that. Um, and Jim had that riff, that really melodic riff, and we just started kind of kicking it around. And we had just at that time finished recording and putting out the Gray Chapter, so we were kind of enjoying that, and in this kind of like, you know, this space where we had just accomplished something major, you know, making that first record together. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, now we've got like new material that we're already getting into. This is crazy. But for whatever reason, like that song, it just never felt like it crossed the finish line until now. I really like that song. Again, that's kind of different. You know, it kind of has those like those Melvin-y inspirations that we don't often get to like tap into. So that's kind of exciting. And yeah, it's like a different kind of melodic structure, song structure for us. That's awesome. Um, Warranty, to my memory, was one of the songs that like we started working on by proxy, you know, like me being in here, I had my electronic drums set up right behind me. And I had to learn how to be, you know, how to become adept at recording my own drums to demos that I was getting sent of like guitar riff ideas and stuff like that. So Warranty was one of those songs that we kind of put together all separated. And then when we got together in the studio and recorded the final version, that's what you hear. And it got built. There was certainly things added that were interesting, like a choir is in there, and some other things changed under the direction of Joe Barisi, our co-producer. So that was pretty rad. But yeah, that was one of those songs that definitely took shape like during the pandemic while we all were just kind of in our houses, you know, trying to be as creative as possible. And I'm proud of that because, you know, we've all been in recording situations where we're watching engineers and what they're doing, and like, okay, so I kind of had like a little kind of crash course in Pro Tools over the years of the records that I've made. And so I got to, you know, kind of teach myself how to record drums in an effort to, you know, write some material that ended up being on this new record, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we also kind of had two ends of the spectrum there where "Medicine for the Dead," you said the roots of that were in 2014, and "Warranty," you said kind of just came about more naturally, more recently. Were a lot of the songs on this album kind of like both of those, or were a lot of them in the works for a while? What was the kind of mix there?
A couple of them were. Hive Mind was one of those that's been around since before we made We Are Not Your Kind. And that was a song that we wrote in like 2 hours. You know, it was like one of those super instinctual songs, impulsive songs that just kind of like we started riffing on stuff, and then 2 hours later we've got like pretty much a finished song. Um, and then what else? Medicine for the Dead had been kicking around since our first tours together. Oh man, there's one more that I'm not remembering right now. That's all. That was also H377. That one's
Mm-hmm.
been around since like I think right after we were working on the Gray Chapter, we started writing what ended up becoming that song. And then yeah, quite a bunch of others were created during the pandemic, like I said, like trying to figure out all these arrangements and writing things and sending ideas to each other and trying to craft it in that way. Pretty unorthodox for us. I think my favorite ways of us working together are in the room, throwing stuff at the wall and just seeing what happens. Songs like Hive Mind, Medicine for the Dead, and stuff like that. But like you said, yeah, like Warranty, The Dying Song, Chapeltown Rag, Finale, stuff like that. Like that was all, kind of crafted in all of our individual spaces, and then eventually, coming together to work off of that.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of these songs also, you mentioned they were written on the road before We Are Not Your Kind, some of them more recently. And, We Are Not Your Kind was just an absolute beast. And the touring was obviously cut short by the pandemic. But now you're continuing the tour for We Are Not Your Kind, and you have a new album to show your fans. I imagine the set list on tour is absolutely stacked. What has that been like?
Yeah, it's a weird space where yeah, we had the door just slammed in our face and we couldn't play shows anymore, and that was a super huge bummer for all of us. And not just our band, for like every band in the world and every music fan. So that was difficult to get through, to be excited about putting a new record out there, and then all of a sudden we can't tour in support of it. Um, but to us, like We Are Not Your Kind ended like right then and there, pretty much. The touring in support of it ended right there, because we had to go back to the drawing table and come up with new material, because that's all we could do. We couldn't play any shows. So in my mind, we switched right then and there to new record, new songs, new everything. So that was kind of, our mentality, and our mindset shift was like, okay, we're on to new stuff already, even though we didn't get to tour in support of our last record for like more than what, 6 months, something like that. um and yeah, so coming back, it's definitely been like a celebration of just being able to get back out here and realizing how fragile the ecosystem of touring and doing it on our level really is. Like it could, we got a real dose of like it could all go away at any moment, because it really did. um so to us, this celebration has just been kind of like, let's stack everything we've got and just all bangers. Which has been pretty much the last, like, we've been on tour almost constantly, a couple weeks off here and there for the last like 13 months, just delivering the bangers. So yeah, it's really been a celebration of getting back on the road, because we didn't know when or if we were going to be able to, and it's been really enjoyable to finally do it.
And how do you think that kind of break from touring? You've mentioned how, when you stopped touring, you had no other choice but to go back to the drawing board, come up with new material. How do you think nonstop touring and then just a huge break in the middle kind of helped your guys' creativity, even though you couldn't be in the room together, which, like you said, is when you're at your best?
Yeah, it was difficult. It was a challenge. Any kind of gear shift like that you're not preparing for is a challenge. But we did the best that we could with the circumstances, and everybody had to. We're kind of like, as a music fan, we're seeing a lot of bands like COVID records come out
Mm-hmm.
like about now, which is really exciting. And so it's given a lot of creativity. This put a lot of creativity out there, which is super exciting as a fan. But for us, it was yeah, I don't know. It was difficult, because we had just expended all that creative energy. Like, you pour everything you've got trying to make every song like it's the last one you're ever gonna write. So you kind of try to give it everything you have. Making a shift like that was it was difficult, because you're so in the zone trying to make the record that we made with We Are Not Your Kind, and focusing on pouring every drop of blood and sweat and tears into that. And so it's kind of exhausting at a certain point. It's like you pour everything you've got into that, and then you have the celebration of that, which is getting to play those songs that you worked really hard on crafting live. So to have that opportunity just kind of like shut in our face was a bummer, but we had to make the best of it. And we're creative people, and we're not going to turn that aspect of who we are off. So ultimately it's like, all right, we can't play shows, so we got to still do something. And so that was making the end so far. So yeah, it was a challenge because like to kind of pick yourself up out of like giving it all you got on that record and then having to go right back to the drawing board and come up with all new creativity, new creative ideas. It's quite difficult, but given the circumstances, I'm really proud of what we made.
Yeah, definitely. And for a band like Slipknot, where the live show is such a big aspect of it, I imagine the pandemic was tough because, for the fans especially, you want to see the lights and the masks and you want to see them hit that, right? And to have that not happen for so many months, I imagine that was pretty difficult for the fans. What has been the reaction of the fans now that you're back on the road?
Seems to be positive. I'm not too in tune with it, like we
Yeah.
kind of I think almost like on purpose, we just kind of stay pretty insulated into what we're doing. You know, and kind of it's almost like our, the audience that we're obviously grateful for the participation, and that's half of the live experience for us is the chemistry between us and everybody that's there. It almost has to become kind of coincidental that it's like it's just incidental that anyone's here watching, and at least for me, that's kind of like the last thing I'm able to think about. Even like during the show, like I often can't even focus. I don't really focus on anything but what the nine of us are doing, especially being back there on the drums. It's like I can't even make out
Yeah.
much of anything besides the first two rows of people. Everything after that is like a total blur to me. But with that said, it seems to feel like this huge resurgence and revitalized energy that's really exciting. We definitely feel that on stage, and that's incredibly gratifying because that's one of the reasons why we're able to keep doing this and keep doing it on the level that we do it, is that people invest themselves into what you're doing, and that's it's an overwhelmingly positive thing, especially in a time when it's really hard to you know find your happiness and find your satisfaction day to day. It's a lot of people have been faced with a lot of real challenges, and so for us to try to contribute to the creative world and do what we do and bring some happiness to people just like those bands that do it for us, that's a really positive thing. So we're really happy to be back at it, and it seems that people are happy that we are back at it.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. And something else that's always struck me about Slipknot is that it's so much more than a band. It's a whole act and performance, like we said, with the masks and the numbers and the music videos and Not Fest. It seems like there's a whole metal subculture based around this band. And as someone like you who's seen the band grow from the very beginning as a kid through all the lineup changes in the pandemic, and you're a part of it now, how has this performance and culture evolved up until now, do you think?
Slowly, for
Mhm.
sure. It hasn't been overnight, but I think dramatically. It's certainly grown to a point where it's a whole other thing than when it started. That's for sure. Which is exciting. You hope to push whatever you're a part of to the extremes where it becomes something bigger than anything you thought you were all going to be able to accomplish. That's awesome. So yeah, to see it grow in many different ways and survive hardships and changes and all that sort of stuff. No, it's definitely gratifying to be a part of that. And in the 9 years that I've been in the band, we've undergone a lot of changes within ourselves and learned about ourselves, learned about each other, and that's a great thing to just still be plugging away at it. That's all you can really hope to do, is just kind of hold on to this vehicle that's a great outlet for us, and treat it with the respect that it deserves, and honor the lineage and legacy of this band. And to me, the best way we honor the legacy and lineage of this band is by working at it the best we can and making it the best that we can make it. And that's day by day. So that's kind of what I mean by like slowly. It's like, you're not gonna make overwhelming changes, in a day. It takes time, just like it takes time to corral this little girl. It takes time and energy and focus, and you make little changes and little steps of growth along the way, and then 9 years later you can be like, wow, we're a much better band than we even were 9 years ago. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, of course. It's definitely a big year for the band coming out of the pandemic. But something else we have to mention, it's a big year for you because Modern Drummer named you Metal Drummer of the Year with all of the work that went into this record. Oh, I mean, obviously, the three records that you've done over the past 9 years, all the touring you've done. What does this reward mean to you?
That's awesome. I'm incredibly grateful for that recognition and that people are, in tune with what we're doing, with what I'm doing, and it's awesome. It's not the goal of setting out to, be in a band and work really hard at making the music that you love. But to have that happen is like it's quite surreal, to go from being a Modern Drummer reader all my life, to receiving a recognition like that is like it's a real honor. It's a real testament to, to our fan base and everybody tuning in to what we're about and what I've been up to these last, 9 years. It's awesome. I'm very thankful. It's not the main idea, not the main goal by any stretch, but certainly cool.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all I got for you today. We're running out of time here. Is there anything else you want to add, Jay?
Oh, that's it. Thanks for your time. Thanks for checking out what we're doing lately. It really means a lot to us.
Yeah, of course. Slipknot, The End So Far, out now. Go stream it, download it, CD, vinyl, whatever you got to do. Check this record out. Can we find you on social media anywhere?
Yeah, I'm easily found. You can yeah, Google me. I'm there.
All right, cool. Jay, thanks for doing this. This is Patrick, WSOU 89.5.